Hey, you guys, it's Into the Stars. And what we really need to be asking ourselves is why is all the movies and media that we see exactly the conspiracies that we are told not to believe in? And that is the question we should really be asking, because everything we see in movies mirrors what is actually the truth. And once you see that, then you know that the conspiracies in fact are true. Then you ask the question, why is the message all about conspiracies? You got to think backwards through a lot of what these people do. And once you do, you can understand what things really mean. Now, I need to give a special thank you to Fan. Please come forward in the comments and take credit for this, for pointing me to this particular website that I'll be reading from today. This video will be a little bit longer than normal, but we are going to take a tour of London. We're going to examine all the Illuminati symbolism in it, and I have not seen a better explanation of the symbolism in London than from this website. So we'll go ahead and begin. First of all, you're going to notice this is actually the Bank of England, and you're going to notice that it forms an upside down pyramid atop another pyramid. Now, the article doesn't state this, but this is something I noticed. We're going to zoom in a little bit. So of course you have your pyramid with all-seeing eye atop it, and this represents some of the main control of our world right in this upside down pyramid here, the Bank of England. So this article I will leave a link in the description, and you can read along. I recommend you just open it and maybe read along with me as I go through and point out all these features within the map. This is the Bank of England that is in the dead center geographically at the heart of the City of London. Contrary to what most believe about London, the 677-acre piece of land is not part of England. It is technically a sovereign state, much like the Vatican within Rome or Washington, D.C. within Maryland in the USA. This corporation is not subject to the Queen or Parliament. In fact, the Queen has to ask permission to enter the city and has to bow to the Lord Mayor upon arrival. It is the wealthiest piece of real estate in the world, as the world's banking monopolies are headquartered there. The Bank of England, like the Federal Reserve of the USA, is privately owned and controls major newspaper and publishing houses that control the media of their respective countries. Now, there are going to be a lot of references to the Lord of the Rings within this. I also have to give credit to Up North of the 49th, who did mention to me Lord of the Rings and lots of symbology within it that reflects, and I believe that that was synchronicity that her and I had that conversation, and then now we're talking about this. So, as far as the Luciferian ley lines go, the Bank of England's building has a 33rd degree heading. And if you look at the British 20-pound note, the bank's facade is crowned with phallic and pentagram symbology. The two main streets that go out from the Bank of England lead to Buckingham and Kensington Palace. We're going to look at those later on in this presentation. Thus, the configuration strongly allude to the connection between the Bank of England and the royals, as the ley lines of the Bank of England configure a horned owl. This horned owl is depicted with the outstretched wings that encompass the entire breadth of the city limits. One wing is pointed up, the other down, as in as above, so below motto of the Luciferians. What is unique in particular is that the outstretched horned owl has the very building of the Bank of England as its fulcrum. The fulcrum of this horned owl in turn depicts a menorah pattern pointing northward as an aerial view. The owl is a feminine version of the ancient god Molech. This ancient and modern god requires child and human sacrifice, as the Israelites did in the Old Testament against the explicit directive of Yahweh to not do. The owl configuration also has some pentagrams and hexagram within its confines. It is well established that a pentagram and hexagram are used of Luciferian and satanic groups to invoke demonic assistance and blessing upon the request of a child and or human sacrifice. Most often, such satanic rituals are accompanied by sexual ritual abuse of innocent children. So, here is the owl. You guys probably already saw it. I'm going to zoom out. It encompasses the entire city limits. Here's the upward turned wing as above, and here is the lower wing, so below. And the Bank of England is at the fulcrum. We can also see the top of the horn. We're going to follow the side of the owl up. Here's the top of the owl's horn. Comes down, over, and interestingly, this red line is the Buckingham Palace, and it points, and this is the red line that points away from Buckingham. This could be an eye here, but this is clearly an owl. Now we'll continue. The aerial view of Buckingham Palace also illustrates some unique features to London's ley line configuration. We're going over here and see Buckingham Palace, and here it is. We'll zoom in and take a look. I'll spin this around so we can look at it a little easier. And there's our pyramid. For one, the palace perimeter itself is in a pyramid outline that has exact dimensions of the Great Pyramid of Giza. The angles are in direct line, 33rd degree from due west. When superimposing the Great Pyramid's inner chambers of the King and Queen onto the palace, you get the ley lines that lead to the Eye of London and to Soho Park. These pyramids and angles have a function of phi ratio as well. It is interesting to also note that mathematically, the whole British system of measurement is based on the Great Pyramid's base dimension of measurement when divided into 1.62 increments. At the apex of the palace pyramid is the monument to Queen Victoria, but the monument is crowned by an angel looking down the stretch of boulevard called the Mall, heading eastwards. The pyramid and mall also comprise a gigantic square and compass that has the Eye of London and Soho Park as its corners. In the midst of this triangular pyramid is Trafalgar Square that has 6 street venues and thus configures a hexagram as well. At the center of the hexagram is the column of Nelson that mirrors the Washington Monument. It is aligned likewise with the mall and pyramid layouts. At the base of Buckingham Palace Pyramid, the left corner, as one is looking toward the eastern horizon, is another angel memorial. The Wellington's Arch, that is the ancient gateway or door portal to the city of London. It is reminiscent of the story of Genesis, in that once the first married couple was expelled from Eden, Yahweh stationed angelic sentinels or cherubs at the gate of Eden. Perhaps these angels are doing just that, but not just in the natural world that can be seen. I mean, this is amazing. This is actually the pyramid with the same dimensions as the one in Egypt. Now it talks about Kensington Palace. We're going to go over to Kensington Palace. Looking from an aerial view toward the setting of the sun, rises in the east, sets in the west. Let's take a look here. And there's our owl. Wow. We'll zoom out a little bit. That's Kensington Palace. That looks a lot like Washington, D.C., as you're probably already seeing. The palace is laid out in the outstretched horn owl configuration. The very facade of the palace architecturally hints at an owl face with the right and left wings of the palace when looking from the southern point of view. The configuration shows that the pawn in front of the palace to the east depicts the Eye of Sauron, which is the apex of the Dark Tower. Here's more references to Lord of the Rings. This eye symbolically represents the eye of Lucifer that is ever vigilant of those of his subjects in the palace, as it were. The wings of the horned owl also serve as stealth pentagrams supported by the Serpentine Lake in the middle of Hyde Park. Wow. The horned owl is the feminine version of the god Molech, as it could both be depicted as an owl or a bull. Thus, two attributes reflect the hermaphrodite characteristics of the Baphomet or Lucifer, as he is very beautiful, but often transforms himself as an angel of light and manifests himself around the world, clothed as a woman behind virgin apparitions. How it was associated with the murder of babies is that children cost money and lowers one's standard of living in general. Thus, giving them up as a religious vow or sacrifice masks the guilt of having to abort them, as over 60 million have been aborted alone in the USA since the early 70s. In the USA, abortion has become the #1 form of birth control and has enabled women and households to maintain their standard of living and lifestyles. Moloch has a very ancient beginning, all the way to the Sumerian Anunnaki, or fallen ones of Pazuzu, that fell from the stars of heaven and became the fallen angels and gods of ancient earth. They required human and child sacrifice in exchange for secret knowledge, and interbred with humans to corrupt the pure genetic creation of mankind, of Yahweh, to produce hybrid humans instead. Of note, it was at this residence of Kensington Palace that Lady Di lived and later was killed, or some believe was murdered, in a sacrificial rite in the place of the souls in Paris. So I encourage you guys to take a look at the link below. Read the rest of this article. It is very in-depth. I barely scratched the surface, and we looked at some of the main features here in London, but there are many, many more, with lots and lots more symbology. Anyway, you guys, hopefully that was helpful. Take care and be safe.